Madam Chair, we're now live.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the February 22, 2022 meeting of the General Government Committee. I will be your chair this afternoon. Due to the COVID-19 emergency declaration, this meeting of the General Government Committee is being held electronically and live streamed on the town's website. All members of council are in attendance, are participating by audio and video teleconference, and town staff are available throughout the meeting if council members have any questions on the agenda. For members of the public watching from home, please bear with us if we encounter any technical difficulties throughout the meeting. I will now call this meeting to order. We would like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest from members of council? Seeing none, thank you. We'll move to item 3, the adoption of the minutes. We have the regular meeting of January 10th, 2022. Any questions or comments? And may I please have a mover? I'll take Regional Councillor Lee. All in favor? None opposed. Thank you. And there are minutes from the closed session meeting of January 10th. Any questions or comments? And may I please have a mover? I saw Regional Councillor Crawford. All in favor? None opposed. Thank you very much. So for today's consent agenda, we have 3 items that were pulled, 4.1 and 4.3 by Councillor Khan and 4.4 by Mayor Collier. Could I please have a mover to accept the remaining consent agenda items? And I see Councillor Tyler Moran. All in favor? None opposed. Thank you. That passes. And we will start with 4.1 contract award Kingston Road East Wetland Restoration. Councillor Khan, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. So I have a couple of questions on this, right? I read it thoroughly. It was well written. So I just want to ask questions like will we be actually expanding the marsh wetlands? Because I know it started like about 5 acres, but when we're done, we're going to have about 15 acres total of, I think you call riparian plantings. I don't know who is going to answer this. It's Cassandra or Cameron, maybe?
Through the chair, this is Cameron Richardson. I can answer that. Thanks for the question, Councillor Khan. Originally, this project was around 2 hectares of wetland restoration and an additional 6 hectares of surrounding plantings known as riparian plantings. Through the extra funding that we are receiving from Ducks Unlimited Canada, the wetland size has increased from 2 hectares to 2.5 hectares of wetland restoration.
But the riparian, last time I said about 16 acres, not hectares, acres, we're going to be done with that's the, from what I researched, riparian is the planting around the marsh, correct?
That's correct. Planting area adjacent to wetland, marshland, and the creek.
And this land is just situated between like the Pecov lands, because it says that it's the town of Ajax's land.
Yes, through the chair, these lands are situated between Pecov Farms and Casino Ajax, so within the Crothers Creek watershed, the actual floodplain there. So it is all owned by town of Ajax, is publicly owned land.
Okay, great. So it says your staff is seeking council approval of scope change to identify funding opportunity. What is the scope change exactly we're looking at?
Yes, through the chair to Councillor Khan, we are looking at a slight scope change in that we have identified the funds required for the wetland and riparian restoration through the ISIP funding, as well as funding from Town of Ajax tree compensation, as well as Ducks Unlimited Canada and TRCA funding. So that's all to do with the wetland. However, the trail that is located on site, it's a paved multi-use trail. That trail has been inundated with water on and off over the last several years due to water levels within the creek itself, as well as some beaver activity on site. So we are looking to amend the scope so that the trail work, including possible rerouting of the trail and repaving of the trail, will be included in this overall contract. However, those funds will not come from the ISIP funding or currently identified funding from TRCA, Ducks Unlimited, or Town of Ajax. So we are looking to work with senior management team and the directors, and as well as operations, to identify the appropriate source of funding for that trail work so that it can be completed at the same time as this wetland project.
Thanks, Cameron. This is what I was softening you up for all the time, getting back to our trails, because since we've been in office, that's been underwater. And, you know, I know Councillor Crawford and I have been working on this a lot because it's the biking trail and we hear from our residents a lot about it. I just want to know, well, so the last time I heard, about a year ago, we were talking about rerouting the trail. So I thought that's something we were looking at instead of, expanding the marsh, which is great. Do you have any more information on the trail? Because that's what all this was leading to. I was just trying to understand exactly what we were doing with this. I think it's about $865,000, right? How does the trail get involved, and when do you think we have a time frame on that trail?
Through the chair to Councillor Khan, you're correct. I believe the trail will have to be rerouted up to higher ground. Although once the wetland restoration is complete, we're expecting that water levels and beaver dams within the site will be addressed and drainage will be addressed appropriately. However, it'll be a slight reroute of the trail and some repaving. So we will be looking into possible funding sources for that, whether we do have some options on the table. So for example, it could potentially come from capital contingency funding or some reallocation of existing ISIP funding. So we'll work with senior staff to look at what the best source of funding is, but we're confident that that trail work will be completed at the same time as the wetland work, so that when construction crews come off site, we have a fully open, restored wetland as well as trail system.
Well, when this comes back to us, can we see like an aerial view of what we're talking about? Because we have an outline. I use my Google Maps, try to zoom into it. I think it's a great proposal. I love the work you guys have done, the attention to detail. Cassandra, I'm sure she did magic with the grants, and you're having Ducks Unlimited getting involved. I'm really happy. And I know I couldn't help but thinking about Regional Councillor Dies when you said you'll encourage the residents to do the plantings going around. And then I think it mentioned something about there might be opportunities for residents to take part in this and events. Can you elaborate more on residents' participation in this project, Cameron?
Through the chair to Councillor Khan, yes, I believe the site, it's very accessible. We have residential neighborhoods surrounding the site and close by schools that could get involved with some public tree planting events. So to bring the community out to help restore the wetland and take active ownership of that green space and be involved with the restoration. And that could potentially be in ongoing years as well. After most of the restoration's been completed, we can always go in with community groups and do infill plantings. And that's something that Town of Ajax has typically done prior to COVID. And I believe once restrictions allow for larger groups to come together and volunteer, that we'll be able to do that again once we're post-COVID as well. So we're hoping that we'll be able to do that with this site. And it allows the community to feel like they were a part of this project and take active ownership of it as well. Excellent,
thank you. I really appreciate the work you guys done on this. And I really want, and I hope that you will make this trail a priority amongst all this. And I'd be honored to move this as we move forward. Thank you, Cameron. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. The next person on the list is Regional Councillor Crawford. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Cameron. Very happy to see that this trail is finally going to be above water. It is a frequently asked question amongst the cyclists and walkers for that matter too, although walkers probably just avoid it in case they sink. I was just curious, the time frame in which it seems like it's starting, where did I read it here? March 1st, and won't be completed until December of next year. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford, that's technically correct in that the ISIP funding must be spent and the project substantially completed by that December 2023 date. However, we anticipate that this project will be substantially completed by the end of this calendar year, starting in March. So we will start in March with doing the work required before the bird migration window opens. So that's typically around mid-April. So some of the work on site will have to pause while the birds are migrating and breeding. And that's typical with projects like this. There may be some small infill planting work in 2023, early in 2023, but we're anticipating that it will be substantially completed by the end of this calendar year.
Okay, that's good news. Now, when we had the trail under off Church Street under the 401 South, we received some funding grant through the federal government. Is there any of that that would be accessible for that trail?
Through the chair to Councillor Crawford. So it's Cass here. So the ISIP grant bucket that we received, the 764,000, the 123,000 of it was allocated to that trail project under the bridge that you were mentioning on Church Street, and then $250,000 of it was allocated to this wetland project. So we're working with operations to fully understand the scope and cost of the trail repair work because there was a stopgap solution put in place, so it's operational, but to figure out the long-term works that need to happen for that trail connection there. We're working with operations on the full scope of the cost for that work. But I will say that if there is any remaining funds left over from that project or the other ones that we have ongoing with ISIP, we would look to explore a potential of reallocation if that's possible. But I do want to clarify that for the trail in the wetland that Cameron and and it's mentioned in the report, is that project needs to be, we need to still find the funding for it. So while the, any leftover ISIP allocation could be considered for that, there would be other means of financing that we have to look into before we can confirm that work can go forward. So while that is our goal and is staff's, hope that we can work to find the funds to ensure that work can get done while the wetland work is underway, we need to take that back and work amongst ourselves to find the most appropriate funding source for that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council right now? Okay, seeing none, I see the report will be moved by Councillor Khan. Thank you. All in favor? Okay, thank you. It's carried. And the next item is 4.3, the final report on over expenditure 2020 road resurfacing. And that was also pulled by Councillor Khan. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a soft inquiry about the over expenditure, $195,000 over budget. So I know we do actually have allocations for overspending or for extra. I forgot the word for it, but this went above and beyond that. I just want to know if this was communicated with staff as it was adding on to the actual budget, or was just sprung on us at the end of it all on the bill. I don't know.
I can answer that. This is Renel Fernando. Good afternoon. Through the chair to Councillor Khan. The additional amount was a combination of two different things that we did improvements which were approved, and there were also unforeseen deficiencies that were approved through change orders prior to them doing the work. The improvements included the intersection of Church Street and Rosslyn Road, where we did Aoda compliant improvements. Aoda is the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act. As a part of that, wherever we can, we try and improve things like add tactile plates and widen curbs and things like that to make sure there's safe crossings for pedestrians and cyclists. We also introduced cross rides through there just to make sure that there's enough room within the crosswalks for both pedestrians and cyclists and so on. So that required the removal of existing curbs and sidewalks and things like that to put in the tactile place, to widen the depressed curbs and so on. The other thing that we did as a part of an improvement was the methodology that we undertook to pave Rosslyn Road. Because Rosslyn Road is a wide road compared to our general local roads, we changed the methodology so that there's less sort of longitudinal joints in between. And this essentially this improves the life of the pavement itself, right? So those are the improvements that we did. In terms of deficiencies, and these were unforeseen deficiencies that came across during the work. And one of the things was that we noticed that there was quite a bit of settlement along the curb lane of Rosslyn Road, almost from Riverside Drive, almost up to Church Street. And due to this, we had to required additional asphalt to be put in to make that work. We think this happened because of the ongoing development. There was a number of developments that was happening around Rosslyn Road at the time. There was Kuglin Homes, there was Jizoko, Marshall, Rich Park, and so on. And this was their route to bring in materials, trucking routes, and so on. So it could be that over time there was settlement to the asphalt, and because it was on base asphalt, we typically pave top after 2 years, but in this case we held off because we knew that there was development ongoing, so we held off for a little bit longer, and the settlement could have been because of that. And so because of that, we needed additional asphalt as well.
Okay. Sorry,
go ahead.
So the improvements, these were new improvements, you would say, like the Aoda, was this something that came out after the quote was received? Listen, I have no problems with it. I love the way the money was spent. I just want to make sure, I was just concerned that staff was in conversation with the project managers or not our with the developers or the contractors, so to speak, to make sure that this is not sprung upon you at the end, like the end of the tab, you get this. That's all I'm trying to find out, right? That there was that communication. So far, it sounds fantastic.
Sorry, through the chair to Councillor Khan, yes, we had the conversations and that we obtained approvals prior to this work being done.
Very well. And the deficiencies, you would say, it would be fair to say that the delay, the 2 years delay in time would have caused stuff to happen that we had to repair. Also, I think we had to consider inflation over the pandemic as well. I don't know, would that be a factor as well?
Yes, I mean, we tried our best to negotiate with the contractor to get pricing that was more sort of in line with the bid documents. But yes, that's fair to say that there was probably a bit of inflation in there as well. And yes, the deficiencies, they were unforeseen, right? So we can only relate this to the ongoing development. And there was also, the Church Street was also under reconstruction at the time, and that was also a trucking route for Rosslyn Road was a trucking route for that project as well. So there's quite a bit of loading and additional traffic than we would have hoped for. So that could have contributed to the settlement, yes.
Well, thank you. I think it's money very well spent when it comes to the Aoda and I think the accessibility crossing, the pedestrians, bikers, I think it's all very important. So thank you for answering all my questions so fluently. I really appreciate it. I'm not the chair. I'll just say thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fernando, and thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Khan. Director Valentin, did you have a response to that before we move to the next person with questions?
Thank you, Chair. Just as a note to Councillor Khan, although this item is over expenditure, it's over award, it is still significantly under budget. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
Thank you. Regional Councillor Crawford, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to get it clear in my head because I'm pretty sure that when residents start to see the road being paved again, they're going to question why we're doing it again. So the base went in 2020. Is that correct, Ronald?
No, the base asphalt for Rosslyn Road went, I believe it was, I don't have the exact date on me, but I think it was a few years before that.
So prior to this term when the widening was completed, likely, right?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that prior
Sorry.
to?
It would have been prior to this term when the road was being widened.
I think so. I'm not sure what the question is because we did Rosslyn Road a few years back. So
Yeah,
this is,
I guess my question, it seems like, it seems soon to have to be repaving a road, that's all. But
Yes.
if that's the natural progression of paving a road, then it's not too soon. But if I look at it through the lens of a resident, they might think, it's a waste of money. I'm just,
So through the chair, just to clarify, it's not repaving. What we're doing is we're putting in a base asphalt. When we complete the construction, it's completed with base asphalt. And then 2 years later, we do top asphalt. So it's still part of the same project and the same cross section. There's generally 2 layers of asphalt. One is 40 millimeters and the other one is 50 millimeters. The 50 millimeters is the base asphalt that we put in initially. And then 2 years following that, we continue with the top asphalt. So
Okay.
it's just like we're not redoing anything. It's just we're continuing the project and completing it 2 years later.
Okay, that's fine. I just need to know in case I get questions, to have to try to explain what's happening. It's not that I'm questioning you, it's trying to explain the process. That's all.
Of course, of course.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions from members of committee? Okay, seeing none, can I please have a mover to receive the report? I see Mayor Collier. All in favor? Thank you, that carries. So the last item pulled from consent agenda is 4.4, the assignment of agreement of purchase and sale with 2613628 Ontario Limited, and that was pulled by Mayor Collier. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm not sure who, whether Nadia or Samuel are on this, but I just have a few questions that I had given Samuel earlier. Are you here?
It's Nadia, I'm here.
Oh,
Yes,
you're both here. Okay, good. So my first is, we sold this land to the developer. And my first question is, how much did we sell? How much acreage is there? What is the land mass? And how much did we sell it for? Let's start there.
Okay, so I can answer that. In 2022, we entered into the original agreement of purchase and sale. The town's 3 parcels total 0.2 acres. And there was also 0.33 acres that Katana conveyed to the town for the future extension of Smales. So we did have an appraisal done. The town's 0.2 acres was appraised at $504,000. And the lands that Katana was conveying to the town was appraised at $493,000. So in the agreement of purchase and sale, it identified that land swap, and then Katana compensated us for the balance, which worked out to $64,137.
Okay, so the reason why I'm even asking these questions, because back then this is a fairly small transaction, but today, when land is $2 million an acre, this is a fairly significant transaction. And it kind of irks me when, like, I signed off on this February of 2020, I think, on this whole agreement. This is done. And when a developer, we make an agreement based on one set of facts, and the next thing you know, they're trying to sell it to somebody else and making a considerable amount of money on land they bought from us for $64,000, it makes me kind of wonder, should we not be getting compensated more for our piece of property that we sold?
So I can certainly understand your frustration, especially with the current real estate market, but we don't have an ability to adjust the appraised value of those lands. So right now, the question is just on the assignment itself, but we can't really go back and update the values of the properties that we sold.
Well, what we can do, Nadia, is I don't have to sign the agreement and we don't have to allow them to transfer it to the new owner, which
That's
gives
correct.
us quite a bit of leverage in this case. So, they can sell it and make a big profit, or we can say, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's right. We sold this to you 13, 14 years ago, or sorry, 20 years ago. and you've been sitting on it ever since, just letting it appreciate. I think we should be compensated at today's value on those lands, because they would still be our lands had they not land banked it.
So we sold these lands in 2020.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said 2002.
No, 2020, so not very
Okay.
long ago.
Okay.
But just for some background as well, when we disposed of these lands, our objective here was really to assemble the property. So if you can recall, there was 3 different owners, all very fractioned off, and we spent many years trying to assemble this property to complete this development and complete the extension of Smales. So when this came forward to council, we were pretty clear that our objective is, yes, to get fair market value for the lands, but also to ensure that this parcel was assembled so that we could see it developed. So our approval of the assignment will just continue to reinforce that we're in support of development of this property.
Okay. So just, and Madam Chair, I'll just ask for a little bit of latitude on this because it's slightly off topic, but I'm just wondering, going forward, would it make sense to put in our agreements of purchase and sale time limitations? So if we sell it to them, we need to see documentation, being site plan application or whatever, submitted to the town within a certain time. Otherwise, the deal is reversed and we keep our land.
So typically with agreements of purchase and sale, when we're disposing of land, we do have those conditions where we need to approve the development, we establish timelines, and if the timelines are met, we have the right to take back the land. In this specific situation, we did not proceed with those conditions because our piece of the pie in the overall land assembly was so small. And again, because our objective was just to see this property assembled and developed. So in this specific case, we did withhold those requirements.
Okay. I appreciate that clarification. I feel better about it now. I hate feeling like we're getting taken advantage of a little bit. I want to see things move forward. I don't want to see people land banking and making profits on things that we control. So that's great. I appreciate your answers. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome, Mayor Collier. I see Councillor Tyler Moran. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And as per the report, just want to make sure that staff can just give me a verbal that, or give us a verbal that Smales is part of the new agreement, will be part of the new agreement, because our understanding, Regional Councillor Crawford and I, is that Smales will be cleaned and developed. If you go there right now, I walk there sometimes, it's pretty, there's a lot of older parked cars and that kind of thing. So it will be part, can you just reconfirm that for me verbally, please?
Yes, so through this assignment, the new builder, which is Orion Cap, they will assume all the responsibilities that Katana had originally agreed to, and that does include constructing the road. And once it's complete, it will be conveyed to the town of Ajax.
Okay, all right, and that's where the price was in lieu of kind of a barter thing.
Exactly, yeah.
No use collecting 500 and then giving back. Yeah, got it. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay, seeing none, may I please have a mover for the report? I see Regional Councillor Dyes. All in favor? Okay, none opposed. Thank you very much. And that's everything for item 4 of the agenda. We will move, nothing in item 5. We'll move to section 6, the presentation. And we have the Rosslyn Road EA and preliminary design. Director Romanowski and Mr. Ruddy. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Through the chair, good afternoon, members of council. I'm here today to present an update on the Rosslyn Road EA and preliminary design. Rosslyn Road is a type B arterial road and runs right through Ajax, as I'm sure everybody knows, connecting Pickering to Whitby. This municipal class environmental assessment is being completed in accordance with the Schedule C planning and design process for an EA. And the work has been completed by the town's consultant, HDR Corporation, and they're here with me today to run through the presentation slideshow. So I'll hand it over to Patrick and Michelle from HDR to go through their presentation.
Thank you, Stephen. Just to check, can everyone hear me all right?
Yes, we
Okay,
can. Thank you.
awesome, thank you. So I will be sharing my screen. And just to confirm, everyone can see my screen, correct? Yep, okay. Awesome.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. My name is Patrick, and I am with HDR. I will be presenting the Rosslyn Road Environmental Assessment Project on behalf of the town of Ajax. In this presentation, I'll just briefly go through some background information about the project, describe the preferred alternative solution of Rosslyn Road, describe and present the preferred design concept for Rosslyn Road, and also discuss some of the project timelines and next steps for this project. So the town of Ajax is undertaking a transportation environmental assessment, or what we call an EA study, for the improvements of Rosslyn Road corridor. So the project limits are from Westney Road, which is on the further left-hand side of your screen, to Lake Ridge Road for this right side of your screen. So as you can see, there are 3 red circles on the study area map. These are just to denote the 3 existing watercourse crossings called Miller's Creek, Caruthers Creek, and the tributary of Lynn Creek. And the main study objective of this project is to just find ways to accommodate current and future transportation needs for all mode users, including pedestrians, cyclists, transit users, and motorists. And this project really builds off of the findings that the town of Ajax conducted in 2019 in their integrated transportation master plan, which
We may have lost the audio. Can anybody hear?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you again.
Okay. Awesome. So I would just like to go through a very brief summary of the EA process, which is a planning process for municipal infrastructure that's enacted by the Ontario Environmental Assessment Act. So this current EA, as Stephen mentioned, is being conducted as a Schedule C project under the municipal class EA process. And it uses the findings from the town's ITMP as inputs to phases 1 and 2 of the process. So as you can see in the schematic below, phase 1 and 2 reconfirms the ITMP findings to establish the probable and opportunity and alternative solution for this project. And during that phase 1 and 2, there are key consultation milestones which we've conducted. So for example, the notice of study commencement and the public information center number 1. And moving along, phase 3 is where we conducted the alternative design concepts for the preferred solution. And during that phase, we also conducted another key consultation milestone. So we held a public information center number 2 back in February 2021. And phase 4, which is where we are currently today, is where we complete our technical studies and develop our environmental study report, which to be filed with the ministry. And our date to issue our notice of study completion is to be confirmed still. But once phase 4 is completed, then that is the end of our study, and construction of Rosslyn Road is anticipated to begin between 2026 and 2028. So as part of this entire study, we had a variety of public engagement methods throughout the study, which included direct mail notices, newspaper notices, as mentioned, the public information centers. We had a project website on the Town of Ajax website with all the documents for the public members to review and download. We had road signages to inform the public members of which events are coming up. We also published social media posts on Facebook and Twitter through the Town of Ajax social medias. We held technical advisory committee meetings and also held meetings with stakeholders within the study area. And based on these engagements, what we've heard is that there is a support in widening the road from the existing 2 lanes to 4 lanes at the existing center line of Rosslyn Road to balance impacts on either side of the corridor. We also heard that we need to address discontinuous cycling and pedestrian facilities along the entire corridor. And there was a preference for off-road cycling facilities with physical separations from the vehicular lanes for safety. And of course, we also heard about the difficulty in accessing existing driveways between Audley Road and Lake Ridge Road, which will become more challenging once Rosslyn Road is widened. And so based on all this engagement, we came up with a preferred alternative solution for Rosslyn Road. So our preferred solution includes operational improvements, such as at the intersections, we would improve things like signal timings, additional dedicated left turn lanes if required, et cetera, et cetera. We also looked at multimodal improvements to implement things like transit, cycling, and pedestrian infrastructures, and of course, widening from the existing 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And so with the combination of these 3 would encompass our preferred alternative solution for Rosslyn Road. And based on the alternative solution, we developed our preferred design sections for the entire Rosslyn corridor. However, we broke it down into 2 segments along Rosslyn. So we have a design section for Westney Road to Audley Road, and then another design section for Audley Road to Lake Ridge Road. So I'll begin with the first segment. So between Westney Road to Audley Road, we are widening the road to 4 lanes. So 2 lanes in each direction at the existing center line with a raised median. And we are providing multi-use paths on both sides, both the north and the south side, and also provide opportunities for landscaping within the boulevard. And we're fully urbanizing this entire segment, meaning we're going to have proposed curb and gutters for surface drainage. And the second segment between Audley Road to Lake Ridge Road, we are again widening from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction, about the existing center line with a continuous left turn lane. We are, however, proposing 1 multi-use path, which is located on the south side, and sidewalk on the north side to reduce property impacts. And we are providing opportunities for landscaping in the boulevard as well. And also we are fully urbanizing the entire segment within this corridor as well with proposed curb and gutters. As part of our design, we also looked at different design considerations, such as intersection cross-ride treatments. So at the signalized intersections, we have a combined cross-ride based on the Ontario Traffic Manual Book 18 guidelines. So meaning from multi-use path to multi-use path facilities, there will be a combined pedestrian and cyclist pavement marking. So as shown on the bottom left side of your screen, that is the proposed Harwood and Rosslyn Road intersection. And for a unsignalized intersection, we have a mixed cross-ride, which is pretty much a free-for-all for the movement for pedestrians and cyclists. So as shown at the bottom right side of your screen, that is the intersection of Woodcock and Rosslyn Road. As mentioned earlier in the presentation, there are 3 watercourse crossings with an existing culvert infrastructure for each, and we examine the need to replace these infrastructures. And so based on our assessments, Miller's Creek is going to be maintained as existing, so no adjustments required at that culvert. Carruthers Creek, there is no adjustments to that culvert either, so that is to be maintained. And lastly, the tributary of Lynn Creek, that will require a replacement of the existing culverts infrastructure. And we also have a non-watercourse crossing, which is a wetland complex culvert, which will require a non-structural culvert replacement at that location shown in yellow. And this slide is just to show pretty much the entire discussion or the entire presentation as a brief high-level summary of the entire corridor and what's being proposed. And so Westney Road to Lake Ridge Road, there's an orange line showing that we're widening from 2 lanes to 4 lanes. And from Westney Road to Audley Road, there's a proposed multi-use path on both sides. And then from Audley Road to Lake Ridge Road, we have a proposed multi-use path on the south side and then a proposed sidewalk on the north side. Timelines and next steps. So the project kicked off in the winter of 2020, and we're aiming to wrap our project up in the next few weeks. Our next steps are to issue the notice of completion to all stakeholders and public members for their review and commenting once we filed the environmental study report. And the detailed design phase is anticipated to initiate in 2022, with construction anticipated to start in 2026 to 2028. And that's it for my presentation. I guess we'll open up to comments or questions, and Stephen will also be here. I'll stop sharing my screen now. Thanks.
Thank you, Patrick. So we're here happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reddy, and thank you, Mr. Yep, for the presentation. I saw Councillor Tyler Moran's hand go up first. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm good. The question I had, I just wanted to revisit it, was answered at the very last point. Excellent presentation. Glad this is all happening. The construction between 2026 and 2028 from, as we said, the state of Westney all the way to Lake Ridge. So in that 24-month-ish period, it'll all be done, correct? Mr. Reddy, right?
Yeah, I think the last, sorry, through the chair, to answer that question, I think the last section may start in 2028. So I don't know that it would all be completed by then. I think those were start dates, but both segments are in the forecast, in the budget forecasts for reference as well.
So through you to the chair, Mr. Reddy. So you're saying Westney to Audley is more the 2026, 2028. And then from it, anyways, I'm not going to push it for the, hold you tall, but I've got the information.
Okay.
You know what I mean? I don't want to, you said that's not one of those. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
You're welcome. Regional Councillor Dyes, did you have your hand up?
I did, thank you.
Please go ahead, and then Regional Councillor Crawford.
Great, thanks. In the presentation, when you were discussing culverts, there was one that was not part of the creek system. You said it was a yellow one. Can you clarify what that is?
Yep, I'll take this one, Stephen. So that specific culvert is just to drain any storm events, just to drain water from the north side to the south side. So any water collected on the north side parcel of that area would just drain to the south side, but it's not a part of the natural water course crossing.
So
it's just like a storm
wildlife crossing.
Yeah, it's not a wildlife crossing.
So do we anticipate that these culverts on the creeks are where the wildlife crosses?
There are some locations where there are wildlife crossings. So for example, in the further west portion, there is that Lynn Creek crossing, which would require a replacement. So through consultation with the conservation authorities, there are wildlife passages that we're providing to allow wildlife to go through that new culvert. But right now it's too small for any mammals to go through right now.
Right, but you will broaden that because
Yes,
there's
correct.
really no connection then through the other two.
Correct. So yes, so the size would to accommodate the size of the mammals as per our natural heritage assessment at that location.
So is that something that will be done in future when the other culverts are replaced?
I think when that time comes, because based on our EA study, we didn't identify the requirement, but when that time does come, there will be a reassessment to see if upsizing is required to accommodate any mammals going through those two culverts.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to make sure that, it gets complicated as you move along Rosslyn. There's changes to the pedestrian and cycling flows. So what side of the road will remain consistent throughout the whole segment, the two segments, for cycling and pedestrians, instead of them having to cross back and forth?
Yeah, yep. So, Stephen, do you want to take this or I could answer?
Go ahead, Patrick.
Okay, so the consistent portion of the multi-use path is the south side. So from Westney Road to Lake Ridge Road, it's multi-use path all the way, which connects to work done in the town of Whitby side. On the north side, we have a multi-use path and a sidewalk for a different segment, and that's because we don't want to induce any more property impacts through Audley to Lake Ridge.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I think we lost Madam Chair.
Uh-oh.
Am I allowed to speak even though there's no chair? I think I was.
I am the co-chair today. So next on our list, we have Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford. You're up.
Co-chair.
Nice segue. So through you to Mr. Reddy, I too hope that there's consistency along that Rosslyn Road for cycling and pedestrian infrastructure. I know it's not popular, but I think it's just another avenue for cyclists to be able to use safely. This road has had a lot of talk about road rationalization and given over to the region. Is there any, I mean, there's good and bad to that, right? I mean, it's same tax dollar, so it's still the same cost, but the level of priority then kind of we worry about. Are we any further with those discussions with the region?
Through the chair, I don't know that we're any further ahead. I think the conversations are still going on. I'm not privy to all of those conversations. Perhaps Mr. Meredith can enlighten us with some of the latest and greatest regarding the road rationalization.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen. So just to follow up on Regional Councillor Crawford's question, you are quite right in the fact that discussions and correspondence between myself and the region has taken place as recently a week ago about setting up a meeting with respect to the potential transfer of responsibilities to the region. And sort of as mentioned, and I think we've all expressed sort of our comments with respect to the potential transition of the Rosslyn Road construction to the region, is ensuring that there is a commitment in terms of timing for construction. So at this point in time, obviously getting the EA and the preferred design approved by council is paramount. As council will recall, starting this year in 2022, we are advancing the detailed design for the segment east of Westney Road to Lake Ridge Road, and we'll be doing that in partnership with the region of Durham, with the understanding that the plan is to transition the actual construction costs and timing to the region, but at the same time, we need some assurances from a municipal perspective. So my hope is that over the next 2 to 3 months, those discussions are going to continue. We're in the process of setting up a meeting with the region of Durham to advance those discussions. At a minimum, I would provide an update report to this council prior to summer recess. Hopefully there's some resolution and direction that we would be able to provide as part of that report. So as referenced, those discussions are active and ongoing and will continue over the next several months. But we do understand, sort of based on our current forecast, we do have the construction in 2 phases within our 10-year time horizon. We do actually have the next phase being the area between Salem and Lake Ridge, with the area between Westney and Salem sort of following as the second phase of that construction. So that's the way it's positioned in our forecast, and we're going to need some assurances from the region as part of the discussions as we advance the project.
So the further east part of the road would go first.
Yeah, and based on the discussions that we've had sort of at a regional level, when Mr. Grieve was still here as the transportation manager, the bulk of the traffic, especially coming westbound from Whitby into Ajax, is really from Lake Ridge and getting people southbound on Salem Road. From a traffic volume standpoint, makes more sense than dealing with the point between Salem Road and Westney Road. So we sort of have it going from east to west in terms of the next 2 phases.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because of the development too. Okay, thank you. Yeah, the only thing, and you know that this is what this council's concern is the priority if it does end up in the hands of the region, because that might not be the same priority. But anyway, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? So I just have a quick one, and it's about the sidewalk, the proposed sidewalk from Audley to Lake Ridge. And just curious, the rest of the design is all multi-use path. Is there a reason it was chosen to be sidewalk there? You're muted, Mr. Reddy.
So 2020. Yes, Madam Chair. So in that section, we're needing to take some property from the north side there, a fair bit. And so to minimize any property loss for those owners, we're proposing a sidewalk there because it takes up less space than the multi-use trail, but still will provide that active transportation connection.
Okay, okay.
So will
Perfect.
bikes be allowed? Will bikes be allowed on that section?
Through the chair, well, technically it'd be a sidewalk, so they would be technically required to dismount and push along that side, that section, or be on the south side already.
So no bike lanes anticipated for that area.
And through the chair, no, not for that particular spot, but there would be one on the south side. And of course, there'd be a controlled crossing at the intersection itself to safely get to that south side.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That was my only question. Thank you for the presentation. If there are no other questions here, I will ask for a mover of the report that accompanies the presentation. And I saw Councillor Khan's hand first. All in favor? Okay, that carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so now we're going to move to a closed session. Could I please have a mover? I see Regional Councillor Lee. All in favor? Okay, let's move to close, please.
He's laughing, so it's okay.
Madam
guys. He's
Chair,
laughing.
we are live again.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Could I please have a mover to ratify the actions in closed? I would like to call on Councillor Tyler Morin. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. Thank you, everyone. That moves to our final item, the adjournment. May I please have a mover to adjourn? And I see Councillor Khan. All in favor? That's it.